Welcome to the void, where the alarms fall silent and the cosmos tastes of terror. We warmly invite you to listen to a story where every decision could be your last. This is Gamma Leporis C, Act 4, The Hive of Betrayal. The crew entered the armory, the stale air thick with a metallic tang. Samantha flicked on her shoulder lamp, its beam cutting through the gloom, to reveal a scene of disarray. Upturned crates littered the floor, their contents spilling out in a chaotic jungle. Hope, already flickering faintly in Samantha's chest, died completely as she surveyed the meager pickings. "There isn't much," she said, her voice flat with disappointment. John scanned the room, his shoulders slumping slightly. "Unfortunately, but it's better than nothing," he replied, offering a pat of comfort on her shoulder. A hollow echo resonated in the gesture, mirroring the emptiness they faced. "It's time to return to the storage room," the captain said, his voice gruff. Samantha, however, shook her head, her gaze flickering nervously towards the distant bulkhead. "Let's forget about the storage and head to the second bay. Contracts and the company mean nothing now." "I despise them too, Sammy," Graham said, his voice laced with frustration. "But we have no choice. We need to gather enough to get Zomiren repaired." A heavy silence descended upon them, broken only by the rasp of Samantha's breath. As they entered the vehicle bay, her unease grew, manifesting in the way her hands trembled ever so slightly at her sides. Her eyes darted around, searching every shadow, every corner, as if expecting something to leap out at them. Reaching the second bulkhead, they found the control panel sparking and sputtered, a gaping hole punched through its center. "Looks like Alan's handiwork," the captain muttered, his brow furrowed in thought. He didn't want anyone going in there. Samantha's breath hitched. "It's not too late, Captain," she urged, her voice tight with a sudden urgency. "Let's forget about the storage and hurry to the second bay." Her gaze darted towards the damaged panel, the sliver of fear creeping into her eyes. What secrets did the storage room hold? And why was Alan so desperate to keep them hidden? "I know, but let's take it easy," the captain finally said, his voice gruff but laced with a hint of concern. "It's just a few dozen meters. Let's grab what we need and get out of here." "John, burn through the gate with the cutting torch," the captain commanded. Sparks flew and metal groaned in protest as John wrestled the cutting torch, maneuvering it in the tight space. A few minutes later, the roar of a falling steel plate echoed throughout the colony, opening up the entrance to a long, dimly lit corridor hidden in shadow. Flickering light from the dying torch cast grotesque shapes that danced on the walls beyond, hinting at what the darkness concealed. Apprehension hung heavy in the air as they cautiously entered the corridor. Each footstep sent tremors through the silence, the rhythmic click of their boots the only sound that dared to pierce the oppressive quiet. Samantha gripped her pulse rifle tightly, her finger hovering near the trigger, her gaze constantly darting between the inky darkness ahead and the captain at her side. The air, thick with a metallic tang and the unsettling scent of damp earth, carried faint, unsettling echoes that seemed to originate from the unseen depths of the corridor. "Let's be careful," the captain ordered, his voice barely a whisper. "Watch out for each other and cover your backs." Samantha's lips pressed into a thin line. She was about to retort, to argue for taking the lead, but the captain cut her off with a curt nod towards John. "John, lead the way," he ordered, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Give the agent the shotgun. I'll cover the rear with him. Let's move slowly." They proceeded in a tense silence, the only light provided by their helmet lamps cutting through the gloom. After about 20 meters, the corridor abruptly split into two branching paths. A smear of crimson stained the floor at the fork, a stark reminder of the violence that had unfolded within these very walls. Based on the markings, Captain Sabo began, his voice trailing off as he crouched to examine the bloody trail. The left corridor leads to the laboratory, and the right? He shone his light down the right-hand corridor, revealing a broad red trail leading into the darkness. A collective gasp escaped their lips. Someone was dragged there, Sabo said, his voice grim. And where does the right one lead? Inquired Balav, his voice tight with a hint of nervousness. The right one, Mr. Balav, John answered, his eyes narrowed, leads to the storage and the reactor. A beat of heavy silence followed his words. Where's Samantha? The captain asked, his voice laced with a sudden urgency. Here, she called out from behind them, a tremor of panic in her voice. The left one is blocked. There's a huge metal sheet blocking the way. Then, with a twisted smile that sent shivers down Samantha's spine, the agent said, Then right it is. We let the customers go first, the captain countered dryly, his gaze fixed on Belov, as they headed towards the storage room. A profound change in the environment sent chills crawling down their spines. The sterile metallic tunnels they had grown accustomed to gave way to an unsettling organic passage. The smooth walls were now replaced by a network of pulsing, bioluminescent growths that cast an eerie, shifting light on their path. The air grew thick and humid, clinging to their skin like a damp shroud. In the distance, a figure slumped against the wall, illuminated by the erratic dance of their flashlights. They approached cautiously, weapons raised, a knot of dread tightening in their stomachs. Carefully, weapons ready, the captain commanded, his voice a low growl. John cautiously approached the figure, his voice echoing in the oppressive silence. Everything's fine? He called out, receiving no response. As they drew closer, a horrifying sight met their eyes. The colonist's body lay crumpled against the wall, a gaping hole torn through his chest. His ribs were splayed outwards, as if ripped from his body with unnatural force. Sammy, what could have caused such injuries? The captain demanded, his voice laced with a mixture of horror and urgency. What kind of weapon could do this? Kneeling beside the body, Samantha examined the wound with a practiced eye. It's not a weapon, she said, her voice grim. Something tore its way out of his chest. Look at these ribs, they're completely shattered. A cold realization dawned on Belov. I recognize him, he said, his voice barely a whisper. It's Lucas Dietrich, the colony's commander. Samantha whirled on him, her eyes blazing with suspicion. You know what, Mr. Belov, she spat, her voice dripping with sarcasm. What else are you telling us? Probably everything. We're just pawns to you, right? Simply put, we know a lot about our competition. Belov replied coolly, his words offering little comfort. Okay, the storage must be somewhere here, Samantha said, her voice tight. Let's take what we came for and get out of here. I'm starting to like this less and less, the captain muttered, his brow furrowed in worry. John, ever the pragmatist, offered a glimmer of hope. Captain, this might come in handy for you, he said, holding up the colony commander's access card. A short while later, they reached the entrance to the storage room. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness ahead, sprinting towards them with something clutched under their arm. Graham, run! He screamed, his voice raspy with panic. These creatures are everywhere, coming out of the damn walls. As the figure leaped into the reach of their flashlights, they recognized him with a jolt. Captain Jack of the Artemis. Relief flooded Samantha's face, only to be replaced by a surge of terror as she spotted the movement behind him. Two dark shapes, vaguely humanoid but disturbingly elongated, detached themselves from the pulsating wall and surged towards Captain Jack. A chorus of chittering screeches filled the air a sound that sent shivers down Samantha's spine. Reacting instinctively, Sabo raised his weapon and opened fire. "Faster, Jack, I got you covered," he bellowed. The captain of the Artemis didn't need telling twice. He pushed himself even harder, his boots pounding against the uneven floor. "Shoot at anything that moves," the captain roared, his voice laced with urgency. "Shoot first. Ask questions later." Captain Jack was only a few meters from them, hope flickering in his eyes, when a horrifying scene unfolded before them. A black, serpentine creature, easily 2 meters long, erupted from the wall behind him. Its barbed tail, tipped with a wickedly sharp point, lashed out with lightning speed, piercing straight through Captain Jack's chest and lifting him clear off the ground. The choked scream died in his throat as the creature hoisted him high, its oval carapace reflecting the flickering light with an eerie sheen. It hissed at them and charged in their direction. The sound of gunfire echoed through the storage, and the beast's terrifying howls pierced their ears. Despite the wounds, the beast continued its charge towards them. "What the hell is this?" shouted John. "Watch out, more are coming," shouted Samantha, illuminating the storage with tongues of flame, systematically covering the approaching creatures. "Okay, forget the storage. Let's withdraw," ordered the captain. "Somewhere I have a contract, Mr. Belov. Please, by all means, search for the cargo," Dahi said. "I've got everything," he stated, holding a container he had torn from the captain's corpse. "Let's fall back." Gasping for breath, they reached the bulkheads separating the corridor from the vehicle bay. "Sabo, can you weld the entrance shut?" "No chance." "Samantha, don't waste fuel," ordered Graham, noticing that the corridor behind them was engulfed in flames. "Try to establish contact with Jan. Let him call for backup." On board the USCSS Zomiren, Jan sat hunched over the engine console, his brow furrowed in concentration. The rhythmic hum of the repaired engine filled the room, a soothing counterpoint to the gnawing unease that had settled in his gut ever since their arrival. A flicker on the comm screen startled him, and he straightened in his seat, a flicker of apprehension crossing his features as Cynthia's voice crackled through the speakers. "Jan, please come to the bridge. Emergency message on the distress channel." "I told them not to wander around the complex," Jan muttered under his breath, a surge of worry washing over him. He pushed himself out of his chair and hurried towards the bridge, the weight of unspoken anxieties pressing down on him. As he burst through the bridge doors, a cacophony of noise assaulted him. Alarms blared, red lights strobed, and Samantha's voice crackled through the intercom, laced with raw panic. "Zomiren, Zomiren. Jan, do you hear me?" Loud and clear, though there's interference, Jan responded, his voice a steady anchor in the storm of chaos. "We've been attacked by an aggressive alien life form. Sound the alarm and call the Marines." Samantha's voice shrieked with urgency. "Repeat. We've been attacked by an aggressive alien life form. Sound the alarm and call the Marines." Jan's grit tightened around the console. An alien life form? That wasn't part of the plan. He forced himself to focus on the task at hand. "Understood. Is everyone okay?" "We are, but Alan, Mike, and Jeff and the Artemis are dead." The tremor of grief ran through Samantha's voice. "What are they doing here? And where's the Artemis?" Jan pressed, a knot of unease forming in his stomach. "I have no idea. Just do as I say." A beat of silence followed. Then Samantha added, her voice tight, "Take care of yourselves." Jan leaned closer to the long range. A flicker of a dark smile played on his lips as he hit enter. Then, activating the continuous looping transmission, he settled back in his seat, gaze fixed on the flashing red lights. With a swift command to Cynthia, he initiated a full lockdown on the ship communication console his brow furrowed in thought. There was something off about her message, a hidden urgency that sent a shiver down his spine. But he had no time to dwell on it. Taking a deep breath, he keyed in a message. Jan Kowalski to corporate headquarters. As expected, we've encountered an alien life form, the target specimen, waiting for further instructions. A flicker of a dark smile played on his lips as he hit enter. Then, activating the continuous looping transmission, he settled back in his seat, gaze fixed on the flashing red lights. With a swift command to Cynthia, he initiated a full lockdown on the ship. Thank you for listening, and please join me for the next episode. Sound effects courtesy of www.zapsplat.com.